Hi everybody, it's Jon Ralston coming to you from the beautiful KTNV studios in Las Vegas. Let's talk early voting. You've probably read my blog. If you haven't, you should go on KTNV's website. I have all the facts and figures about early voting that you'd want to know. Now, some of these numbers can be confusing, so let me distill it for everybody. After 12 days of early voting, 2 more days are left here in Nevada. The Democrats have built up quite a big lead here in Clark County, which is a Democratic stronghold, which they always do. 55,000, in fact. And that is going to stake them to a big lead probably when the election night returns post. So, Donald Trump, he has an uphill battle here. So does Joe Heck running for the Senate. We already have a question, Joey Schmidt. Why, where are the polls wrong? They're showing it much closer than your early vote statistics. You're right. Polling has traditionally been terrible in Nevada. For instance, all the polls predicted in 2010 when Harry Reid was running for re-election that he was going to lose. Guess what? He won by almost 6 points. It's very difficult to poll in Nevada. Transient, 24/7 town. Hispanic vote is almost always underappreciated there in the polling, and Hispanic vote is very big. It's going to be a fifth of the vote. It has had a Republican bias consistently in the last few cycles, 2 or 3 cycles. Just doesn't match up to what's really happening on the ground. That has happened, I think, again this year. Now, do I think the polls are tightening here? Probably, but here's the interesting issue with the polls tightening, especially after the Comey letter came out. Hillary Clinton and the Democratic machine here had already banked a whole bunch of votes before that happened. And so it will not have a big effect, or as big effect. 35% or so might already have voted. What percent, Evan wants to know, of the total electorate do you think Hispanic voters would constitute? More than 20? How will Heck do compared to Trump with Hispanic voters? Great questions. The answer on what I think it will be, I think based on what I've seen so far in the early voting data, it's going to be about 20%, maybe a little bit higher. Again, it's hard to tell quite yet because early voting is not over, and the 2 biggest days of early voting may be yet to come. The biggest one is the last one. Heck is right now not doing that well compared to Trump, but I think he will do better with Hispanic voters is the answer to that. I've calmed you, huh, Jennifer? Usually people don't see me as a calming agent, but I'm glad that I could help you. I assume that you're a Hillary Clinton supporter and you're heartened by the numbers. The numbers look very good for Clinton here. I'm not ready to say unequivocally she's going to win the state, but Donald Trump has a very, very narrow path here. John, Greg wants to know, do I buy the Heck spin that he can come back on election day or that Catherine Cortez Masto is going to be closer to Hillary Clinton than Berkeley did with Obama? Gun to your head or chips down, who do you think wins the Senate? Well, I'll make my predictions in public in a column on Sunday, but I do think right now that Heck's work is cut out for him. Listen, I think the Trump stuff has hurt him a little bit, but has it hurt him enough to lose the race? I don't know that. I think he's generally run a very good campaign. They think they can still win on election day by having a heavy Republican turnout that helps Heck. I think there's little margin for error there. I think the race leans slightly towards Catherine Cortez Masto, but not ready to call it yet. See here, David, I don't want to miss you. Don't you think that those swayable by Comey general tightening are not early voters? I don't know who is swayable. There's a lot of contradictory evidence there on that. I think she's probably hurting a little bit with independents, but she is holding her base right now. The question is, does it energize Republicans to go out and vote in greater numbers than they usually do? No evidence of that yet in the early vote, and we'll have to see if they can actually get more people out to vote than usual on election day. Remember, Democrats won election day here in 2012. How do Nevada Hispanic voters behave differently from those in Arizona, Florida, and Texas when it comes to voting? I don't have a good answer for you on that, except that I don't think they behave that differently. It's like when I'm asked how are Nevadans different than people who live in Massachusetts. I think generally they're the same. And I think generally Hispanics, while they're not super enthusiastic about Hillary Clinton, are super enthusiastic to vote against Donald Trump in all of those areas. Saturday is not a day of early voting, Mike. Thursday and Friday. Today is Thursday. Those are the last 2 days. I talk too fast? Yeah, I've been told that before, Gary, but I talk as I talk, so listen closely. Do I believe Heck is getting 26% of the Latino vote? It's possible. I think he could get anywhere from a quarter of the vote to a third of the vote. The higher it gets, the more chance that he has to win. He did very smart outreach to Hispanics as a congressman, and they've run a lot of Spanish language TV, but the Trump effect on Heck could be devastating. We don't know yet. It's good that Nevada had very few electoral votes. I don't know what that means, Ben, but I think you're wrong. John, what's the basis for your thinking that HRC will keep around 90% of the base? Polling. Yeah, polling. And data I've seen on the early votes so far. Now, it's possible that she holds less than 90%. It certainly is. But she's not going to hold much less than that. And Trump is not going to hold 90% or even close, probably, to the Republican base. So even if you do give him the best case scenario in the math, he's still losing here, and substantially. The polls versus early voting seem to have a substantial disagreement. Do you believe that a polling error due to sampling or just a superior ground game from Clinton? I think it's both. I think there is a polling error. I think there's too many white voters vis-a-vis minority voters being sampled here in Nevada. And Clinton team, the Democratic Party here, has a superior ground game to the Trump organization. Why? The Trump organization doesn't have a ground game, and the Clinton campaign and Team Reid and Team Democrats here have one of the best in the country. How much did the Sandoval-Adelson special session hurt the Republicans? Well, I think in individual races, it might hurt them some, especially in northern Nevada, but I don't think much yet in southern Nevada, although we just don't know. I don't know anything about voting. Should I still vote? Well, you still have time to study. People shouldn't be early voting anyhow. That's my feeling, as I've said many, many times. But you should learn. It's the most important right you have as an American. Has the Latino vote clearly increased over 2012? And if so, is it possible to extrapolate to the national Latino vote? The answer to your second question is no. Each state is different. Has it clearly increased over 2012? The answer to that question is no, it has not. But it's getting up close to those levels, or building toward that level so far in early voting. Again, I don't have enough data from today, certainly don't have anything from tomorrow to know what the final numbers are going to look like. So just help me to understand, if Clinton wins one of the swing states, will that secure her the 270 electoral votes needed to secure the presidency? Well, it depends on the state. Here's what I know. If Clinton wins Nevada, it blocks several paths for Trump and makes his path to the presidency almost impossible. For instance, the 538 site has run simulations for Trump to get the presidency with Nevada going to Clinton, and in only 5% of those did he win. How much would you guess Cortez Masto will lag Hillary Clinton's numbers? Very good question. In the polling so far, she's doing very, very well in the early vote. They have really, really focused on that Senate race here, most expensive Senate race in the country, maybe a $100 million race. So it's a real question whether she will lag Hillary Clinton. What other state is most similar to Nevada demographically? Well, Colorado a little bit, maybe Florida to some extent with high Hispanic populations, but I would say that Nevada is its own sui generis state. Let me look here. Should the Democratic vote margins increase today and tomorrow to pad they should, if based on history, and that doesn't mean they will, but they should. Tomorrow is really the day to watch. The turnout generally on the last day goes way up, and the Democrats add a ton of votes. Just to give you some context from 2012, it was 55,000 at this time in 2012. It is now, too. Ended up as 71,000 in 2012. If the Democrats got there, they would be absolutely thrilled. There just isn't the same enthusiasm for Hillary Clinton as there was for Barack Obama. Also, the 55,000, while a nice raw number, is actually lower in terms of percentage because there's 150,000 more voters here in Clark County than there were in 2012. What percent of the total vote on election day? That's a very good question. What will the Dem breakdown be? As I said, the Democrats won slightly on election day in 2012, but I think they're going to lose this year. The percentage vote generally is only about a third of the vote or less occurs on election day here. 2/3 of the vote should be in. Howard Watts III, with the chair joke. What have you seen in early voting so far when it comes to black and youth turnout, especially compared to 2012? Great question, Howard. African-American millennial turnouts down across the country is here too, based on the data that I've been privy to. Went up a little bit yesterday in that big day for the Democrats in Clark County when they won by almost 5,000 votes, but it's a problem. Ben, generally we say that party registration does not equal party identification. In states like Louisiana, this is obviously the case where there are actually more registered Dems than Republicans. Is there a stronger correlation between registration and ID in Nevada? I can't speak for Louisiana, so I don't know if it's stronger here. I do know that self-ID is always a problem. There's some percentage for error there, which is why polls that are done with voter lists as opposed to random digit dialing are much more reliable. Whoops, sorry about that. What percentage of registered voters in Nevada have voted so far? It just came in, so already, no one's asked that question. About half, a little bit more than half had voted as of yesterday. It should get up probably to about 2/3 by the end of the day tomorrow. Patrick wants to know, you're hoping Hillary wins. It's probably because she's a woman, but also because I think it's disastrous for not only Americans. Whoops. I lost that one. I'm sorry. Hang on. I'm going to try to find it. There we go. Excuse my techno-idiocy. Anyway, my question is, Nevada's early voting, do we know what percentage of women had voted so far? I don't know that percentage. It's going to be more than men overall, but I'm sorry, I do not know the percentage of women in early vote. I haven't seen that broken down in a granular way. How long is the history of the accuracy for early voting? What do you think the odds for Nevada are based on that? Well, I've been following it very closely for several cycles. I predicted the blue wave in 2008 based on early voting. I predicted Harry Reid would win in 2010 based on early voting. I predicted the win for the president here in 2012. And in 2014, after the first day of early voting, I could see there was going to be a red wave in Nevada. Even then, I did not know how deep it would be. Tarkanian Rosen, that's CD3. I think Tarkanian's in big trouble based on the early voting and some of the other data I've been privy to. He's going to need a huge boost on election day to win, and I doubt he's going to get it. How am I planning to monetize your newfound fame? Perhaps a chain of goatee clipping parlors. Zach, you can partner with me. That is a great, great idea. 538's model has flipped Nevada to 50-50. Is Nate Silver finally wrong? Listen, I understand how Nate does what he does. He bases it on polls and he waits and does a lot of different things. He's basing it on public polling data. I'm basing it on private data that I'm privy to and the early voting numbers. So I'm not going to quarrel with Nate. He's always been very nice to me. Final number in the Silver State, Clinton +4, Mike. I think that's a totally reasonable guess. Anybody who says I rock is fine with me, Phil. Thanks for that. City Councilman in Ohio, way to go. Most Republicans don't early vote, meaning the Democrats are extremely close in early voting. Republicans should take lead on vote day. Again, the Republicans actually have a turnout advantage during early voting here, Ben, statewide and in Clark County. But because the Democrats have such a big registration edge, it is way overwhelming that they have a 90,000 voter registration edge. So again, in Nevada in 2012, more Democrats than Republicans turned out on election day. Is there a way to know which party is getting out more new voters that didn't vote in 2012? I've been told it's a fairly traditional early voting turnout so far, so whether there's cannibalization going on or not, we'll know more after we see what the turnout is on election day. What level of votes from Clark County by tomorrow would you think would guarantee the election for Clinton? There's no guarantees, of course. I don't know how all these people are voting. I know what history says, and I know partisan voting trends. That's what I'm basing this on. But if she gets up above 60,000, which I think she will in Clark County, I think she's probably going to win, unless there's some serious anomalies. By the way, again, people are not considering independence. A lot of people are talking about Trump winning independents big. Romney theoretically won them. I'm not so sure that he won them by that much. But the independent mix here is very different. It's not nearly as white as it used to be. A lot of minority voters who were voting for Clinton there, and the Democratic Party registered a lot of folks here as independents. Okay, I'm going to keep scrolling down here. The polls lie. We're being propagandized by the government-controlled media. Okay, we'll let that go. If Trump doesn't win, it will be fraud. Of course it will be. Okay, go put your tinfoil hat back on. Come back later. Why aren't there Ralston-type figures that can tell us everything we need to know in other states? Well, you will be happy to know that the Ralston cloning operation is in full force and will be producing clones for the 2020 cycle, Daniel. If half of all votes have been cast and 2/3 by election day and Dems up by, say, 65,000, does that not mean she wins already? I would think there's a very, very good chance, Stuart, if the numbers you just cited are true by the end of tomorrow night, and they likely will be, that yes, she will win. Do Republicans outvote? I've been asked this already. Republicans generally do outvote on election day. They didn't in 2012, and I don't think the Democrats are going to cede that to them. The question is there more enthusiasm now because of the Comey letter, et cetera, for Republicans? We'll see. What do I mean by private data? I mean people share stuff with me. I'm so charming that they give me their private polls. What do you view key for EV as Clark Wall instead of total lead? I'm not sure what that means, but if they get to a firewall of 60,000 or above, I believe Hillary Clinton will win the state. I know Nevada is notoriously difficult to poll, but is there any particular pollster that historically gets it least wrong? Mark Mellman, the Democratic pollster, and Dave Sackett, the Republican pollster, are very good here. Peter Hart has done some great work, the Democratic pollster here over the years, too. How does Nevada stack up in regards to a claim 2 days ago? Oh, yeah, this is the 28% of Republicans crossing over. I don't know the answer to that. I haven't seen any polling that backs that up. I will tell you that I do think that Trump is not holding his base very well. In other words, he may be in the high 70s, low 80s. That's devastating to him. Bernie's was fraud so far-fetched that there is fraud. I don't know what that means, James. Dennis James, retire. Are you asking me to retire? I would love to retire. Do you have any suggestions of where I could go and how much money you'll give me to retire? Because I'd really like to know the answer to those questions. Is that the end? Any more questions? Thank you. That's all. Jason Sinclair, are you signing off for me? I don't know if I'm quite ready to sign off yet. Are there any more questions about the early vote in Nevada? As I said, I'll be updating that early voting blog, and you can follow me on Twitter at Ralston Reports. That's the best place to get the most immediate information. Then go onto KTNV's website, and you can find the latest numbers. Any info on CD4? Good question, John. Ruben Keenan has a huge lead in the early vote through Democrats, if Democrats are voting as Democrats. Crescent Hardy is going to get some Democratic votes, but those numbers are daunting. Don't retire, at least for next week. You got it. Wait, Robert Torres says, don't worry, I'm still here. If you had a % chance Hillary wins Nevada, what would you put it at? I put it at well over 50% right now, but I want to see all the data before I make a prediction. I will make a prediction in public on Sunday. Look for that. It'll be online. Let me see. We're starting to get more questions. Now I got to scroll back. I already said in CD4, Ruben Keenan's a heavy favorite in that race. Crescent Hardy is going to get some Democratic support, but I don't think it's going to be enough for him to hold on against this wave that's building. What's my take on the national results overall? I still think Trump has a very narrow path to victory, but I think the race is tightening. Yes, rurals are the 15 counties that are not Clark and Washoe. Nick, thanks for asking. I don't know about the early vote in Florida and elsewhere, except what I've read. I'm not an expert on that state, Todd, so I don't want to speak about it. GOT about operations. Do Republicans have a meaningful one? Meaningful. It's all in the eye of the beholder. They don't have a great one. Because the state Republican Party here is a joke, bordering on a criminal enterprise, and the RNC has tried to back them up, but all they can do is put a bunch of people on the ground. There are some third-party groups that are trying to help the Republicans, but it's nothing compared to the Democratic machine here. Top news on the early votes, Aaron, is that the Democrats are looking very, very strong in Nevada. There was an uptick in the Democratic performance yesterday, Benjamin, but whether it had anything to do with Clinton's visit, that was the goal of the visit, so they would say so, but who knows? Could Hillary Clinton win the state by more than Obama did? That's a great question, Thaddeus. Well, Obama won by almost 7 points. There is some data out there that suggests she could. I don't think it'll happen. CD3, Tarkanian, Rosen. I think Rosen's a favorite. Tarkanian could be saved by a big Republican turnout, but that's what all these Republicans are looking at now, big Republican turnout on Election Day. Election Day demographics, as I said, the Democrats won in 2012. Generally, the Republicans win, but it's too late because of all the votes that the Democrats have banked during early voting. How close were my 2008, 2012, 2014 predictions? Well, I predicted Obama would win in 2008 and 2012, and I predicted the red wave, although I didn't get as deep as it would go, but I knew there was going to be a red wave in 2014. I didn't think the upsets would extend to Crescent Hardy beating Stephen Horsford or Adam Laxalt beating Ross Miller, but I knew they were going to be much closer than they should have been. But I predicted fairly early on during the early vote that there was going to be a huge red wave in Nevada. Only question was how big. The early vote is fairly predictive, folks, unless something really weird is going on and the other private data I have access to that I'm privy to is not right. Hillary Clinton's in good shape here. And the Senate race is maybe getting away from the Republicans. My analysis, 538's neck and neck. 538's going on polling, I'm going on early votes. From early voting data, who was the most effective one-day campaign surrogate who delivered the biggest bump? That's impossible to tell, Zach. It's just, I don't draw a correlation there. I just crunch the numbers. It's against the law. That's why you can't do a write-in vote here in Nevada, Kathy. Talk to your legislator. What do I think of Trudeau, Canada's PM? I don't think he can vote in Nevada. That's what I think of him. And is Washoe becoming more Democratic, or are they just doing better this year for other reasons? Great question, Pablo. It's a Republican county by a couple of points, but the Democrats have really put in an effort up there. Now, they've gotten crushed the last 3 nights there, but they're still way ahead of last cycle's pace, and they've got a ton of canvassers on the ground. One thing that's going on in Nevada this year that hasn't gone on to this extent in other cycles is C4s, nonprofits like For Our Future, League of Conservation Voters, Mi Familia Vota, really doing voter contact a lot this time. How's the GOTV on the Republican side? There is no GOTV on the Republican side to speak of, but you don't generally, had they already... but they don't have the same advantages the Democrats do, unions, et cetera. So I appreciate the compliment, Bob. I don't have good vibes for Clinton, Elizabeth. I'm just reading the numbers. As for Heck, yeah, I think he's in trouble. What's my party affiliation? Great question, David. It's always been the same, nonpartisan. No, I'm not a Dem, James. Never since I covered politics here have I been a Dem, and I've covered politics here for more than 30 years. State legislature, the odds-on does go D, at least in the Assembly, and I still think it's slight advantage Dems in the Senate, AJ. Thanks for asking. What's my favorite color? My favorite color is black. How's that? Thanks for asking, Ryan. The easiest question I've been asked so far. All right, folks, we're going to get another update on the actual vote total soon. We won't have Clark numbers until late tonight. We'll have Washoe numbers right after dinner time, I would think. Yeah, well, I don't care about a spoof account. I'm insulted Twitter has not verified me. It keeps me up at night. My thoughts on Evan McMullin is he could be a spoiler in a couple states, maybe in Utah. Is Harry Reid the most transformative Nevada politician ever? Great question, Mike. The answer is probably yes. In so many different ways. I need to write the unauthorized biography. Thanks, Augusto. What would I consider really weird? I would consider really weird if a lot of Democrats were bleeding away from Hillary Clinton and voting for Donald Trump. Thanks for that, Rick. I try hard. I work hard. All right, well, I better get back and do some work before the bosses find out that I've snuck away and done this Facebook Live. I'll try to do another one. Either on Monday, maybe before the election, or Tuesday, and maybe even on election night. I hope you will all come back. Thanks for all of your great questions. They were all great questions. Thanks again for tuning in to this Facebook Live.